What's going on, guys? I hope you guys had a fantastic Thanksgiving week, and it's time to get back to things. I think we're all still stuck in our turkey comas and trying to move forward with the week. I know I am. I am not excited about starting the week again. In fact, I'm starting to do some of my inventory for the bar at home just because I don't want to deal with anything when I get there. So anyways, but one thing I want to talk about today is this Sabrina's Gengar. Why is this card so significant today? So mine is a PSA 9. I went to the last Charlotte Collecticon here in Charlotte, and I traded some modern stuff, some cash, and I picked up this PSA 9 Sabrina's Gengar. It is beautiful, it is awesome, and it is a new cert Sabrina's Gengar, so it was freshly graded. And it's a beautiful copy. It's really, really clean. Anyways, so this card went for a whopping $14,100 in auction this past night. I think it was last night or the night before, from Z&G Auction James, Z&G Emporium Auctions. And this is pretty significant, guys. I think some would say it's not that crazy considering the card's probably a $15,000 card. So it was at $14K. It ended the auction. But what's crazy is I do think that this is a key indicator of where the market's headed, even for cards like these major vintage banger cards. So first off, let me just say this. There are several Sabrina Gengars on the market right now in PSA 10. This is a very, very sought after and low pop, hyped up card these last couple of months, but all of a sudden there's several of them on the market. What does this mean? Why is everyone trying to sell this card? And when I say everyone, I say about a tenth of the population of these cards owned. People are basically listing them up for sale. Now they are listing them far higher than what it's probably worth, but I guess they all think it's worth about $18,000 to $20,000 or more, right? That's what the card is listed at. So the fact that it went for $4,000 below what is the lowest cost listing right now, I believe. And even if there's a listing for 16, 17, it's still far below those listings in auction. Now, sometimes in auctions, you get the best deal, but in this market, a lot of the times the auction has shown to outpace a lot of the buy it now listings. So I think it's interesting that this auction not only undersold and underperformed, but also by a large amount. Additionally, if you actually were following this auction, then you noticed the last legitimate bid, in my opinion, was about $11,200 or $12,100, somewhere in that range. It was $11,000 or $12,000. That was the last bid placed with a high feedback bidder. The other two bids that were placed on this card were very low feedback. Now, that might not mean anything. That could simply mean that this was a newer buyer. This was a newer collector. This was someone that didn't use eBay a lot. Or the more rational explanation for it, which would be that this was another item that was a victim to, we just talked about Rick Probstein. We just talked about his stuff with Snipe. We just talked about, his auctions getting shilled and him supposedly shilling his own auctions. Do I think this is the case with Z&G? No, I don't think this is the case. But I do think there is certainly some shill bidding going on. I do think that there is some sleazy activity going on. The last two bidders had very low feedback. I would love to know if they actually bought this item, if they paid and bought this item, which would simply mean that they don't use eBay a lot, that they are new to the platform and maybe even new to this hobby and decided that they were going to drop $14,000 on a Pokemon card. It's hard to believe. Maybe some people they only operate outside of eBay. They go to shows, they go to local card shops. They know a lot about this card, but they finally decided to use their eBay to buy it. That could be the case, but I don't know. Rationally speaking, for me, when I see low feedback, I see low confidence in the item. I see people that are either new accounts that have been made to upbid the item, right? Shill the auction. That's what I think was really going on here. I think this card isn't even probably worth 14,000 in this market right now. I think the market is speaking big time, and it's saying that, hey, the last legitimate bid for this was like 12,000, 11,000. And even if that was a legitimate bid, that could also be someone who owns this card, who is trying to push up the value of this card and maintain its value and make sure that it goes higher than it should. I think this is I love looking at stuff like this because I think it is a large indicator of where the market's at. Gengar is not necessarily a major Charizard card, right? Gengar has its own cult following, but I think people are exhausted right now. I think people are burned out, and I think Pokemon is, people have been talking about Crash, talking about their collector portfolios going down in value. And I think this is another indicator of where the market's at right now, and that it is kind of either plateauing or it's headed down a little bit for the next foreseeable couple of months. There might be other places to park your money. Right now, the saying is from November pretty much to April, you're going to have a lot of great opportunities in the stock market and where that money is moving, and then sell in May and go away is kind of the saying in the stock market. I'm trying to learn more about that as I trade more. That's become a big part of my life, but I connect it back to Pokemon now more and more. And, I wonder if we'll see inversely how the market is, the stock market is in a buying condition right now. We're in a bullish condition right now. We might have a Santa rally. Could that happen with Pokemon? It's possible, but I also think when there are other assets that are outperforming, people might move away, particularly if we're talking about investing in Pokemon and, actually making real money in Pokemon, real profits, real revenue. I think that there's a lot of incentive to move away from it right now if it's slowing down and move into another traditional asset or equity. That being said, my general takeaways here are that I think the market is shaky right now. I think the last bidders that were bidding on this item that were low feedback were probably give us a false idea of what the item is actually worth, what people are actually willing to pay for it, right? Something is only worth what people are willing to pay for it. And right now, I'm strapped for cash right now. I'm still paying off my credit card and dealing with, some of the major purchases that I bought this past couple of months. But I've pumped the brakes heavily. I would love to get this Sabrina's Gengar. I've been watching it. I talked to you guys last week about maybe this was my chance to scoop this card up. And honestly, 14,000 for me personally, I'm like, that's not too bad. I know this card probably would sit around 15 to 16,000 at the shows. I know that people on eBay are going to ask a lot more because of the fee structure. That's really why people are asking 18 to 20,000, is they're trying to get near that $15,000, $16,000 mark. And it's hard to do that with the massive fees on eBay. So full transparency, I sat out on this last auction because I just felt like maybe the Pokemon market will finally slow down and I'll get a chance to buy one of these other grails at a slight discount from these super hyper inflated prices and I would say manipulated prices. And I sent a $16,000 offer for Sabrina's Gengar, first edition. Now this was before I even saw there was an auction. I saw the auction and I said, oh my God, I hope they don't take my offer because I don't think this auction is going to go as high. Of course, the auction did not go as high. The auction went for $14,000, $2,000 less than what I had offered on this card. And by the way, guys, my offer wasn't just ignored. My offer was declined. So someone said, you know what, 16,000, this card's worth way more than 16,000 right now. I beg to differ. The market begs to differ too. So I'm very curious where things are going to go from here. And I just wanted to talk about this card because I do own this card. It is one of my favorite cards in my collection. And I'm pretty damn happy with my 9. There's really not a reason to get a 10 other than the fact of really for me, it's always been the street cred of, yeah, I have one of the rarest Gengars out there. But other than that, I think a lot of people that just want the card, the PSA 9 is a great alternative, which is what I started with. It's what I start out with a lot of my high-end cards. I start out with a PSA 9 just to get my foot in the door and have, the entry-level version of that card. PSA 8's fine right now, too. With PSA really, crunching down on grading and getting tougher. I think a PSA 8 is nearly just as good as getting a PSA 9 right now, so keep that in mind. But also, let me know what you guys think about this auction, about what I'm talking about. There were some I think one bidder had like a feedback of 7, another bidder had like a feedback of 11. That seems extremely, extremely low, right? Like, I hadn't used my eBay since like 2017, back in 2019, 2020, when I got back into using eBay for buying cards. And even then, I had like 100 or 200 feedback just from like miscellaneous random purchases on eBay over the years since 2017. So it's hard for me to believe. I mean, it's not crazy that people might start a new eBay account. That's not totally far-fetched. One thing James from ZNG said to me one time, I was like, what's going on with these low feedback bidders? I feel like, a lot of this stuff is getting pumped up. His response to me at the time was, actually, some of these low feedback bidders pay on time more often than higher feedback bidders. And I think that's kind of interesting. I don't know if I fully believe that, but it'll be interesting to see if this card gets relisted. My hunch is that it's going to be relisted and that it'll probably go below 14,000. It might be relisted and go above 14,000 with some legitimate key players. Maybe people were just away. Maybe it was a great opportunity. I could be wrong on all of this. I would love to hear what you guys think. On the flip side, inversely, we could say this could be a great opportunity because it was Thanksgiving week. Things were slow. People weren't buying. People were spending time on their relationships with their family, with their loved ones. And maybe that is what pulled people away from the market right now. And people weren't paying attention to some of these key, super hyped up grail auctions. I gotta be honest, I'm pretty shocked that it went for 14. Pretty shocked. Again, seeing the 18 to 20 numbers on eBay, 21, higher than that. I'm sure there's a couple listed, near 30. Seeing some of those numbers really reminded me that maybe waiting for these auctions is the best thing you can do. If you're waiting for some really big cards, maybe waiting on an auction right now could be the best thing you can do, because these people with these buy it now auctions listed super high. I do the same thing. I list cards knowing they're not going to sell immediately, but that they'll sell down the road. And maybe that was the strategy for some of these Gengar cards, that, hey, they might not be worth 18, 20 right now, but they'll be worth this in a month, 2 months, maybe, when spring kicks up and, I feel like some of that hype and FOMO starts driving Pokemon again, and we start having heavy buying in spring and summer. But yeah, that's all I wanted to say about that. Additionally, it really made my night the other night. Someone came into the bar and they came all the way from New Jersey, seeing some family, but drove all the way to my bar just to say what's up and talk Pokemon, talk shop. That was really, really cool. If you are watching this, it seriously made my night, man. And just want to let anybody know, if you ever come into Charlotte and you want to come visit me, I'm almost always working. I'm at Starlight on 22nd here in Charlotte. We are a small music and just events venue in Noda. So come out, come check it out, come see me, come say hi. It would really make my night. And we were talking about Pokemon, but just to cut to the chase, we were talking about the market and how, we've both been in it for some time and have seen the highs and lows. And this person in particular really believes that we're about to see a great buying opportunity for sealed product. And we're about to see a major retrace on some older vintage cards. I think I'm kind of somewhat in disagreement with, vintage cards going down in price. And maybe he didn't mention that, but I definitely did. It's hard to believe that some of these cards, when they're so low in population, will go back down that much in price. But I'm trying to live and learn, right? Like the Sabrina's Gengar is a great example. It's a great example how I thought this card is surely going to hold value. And, maybe this was just a rough week for auctions, a rough week for eBay, a rough week for Pokemon because it's, Thanksgiving. There's a lot of hype for Ascended Heroes, right? Everyone's going crazy for the Mega Gengar leak that we've had. There's a lot of hype that is going to be really focused on the newer sets. So that could be where a lot of attention is right now. It's just not really on vintage. You know, we have these cycles where people cycle in of modern's really hype, and then boom, people get tired of modern, they cycle back into vintage gets really hype, and so I am sure that eventually we'll see a spike in vintage card prices again, but right now could be a good time to be looking at them. But yeah, the sealed market, you know, we were talking about how there was a time when stuff was below MSRP. I just don't think that's going to happen with sealed product, but I do think that we could definitely see MSRP. We could definitely see products really drop if we get months of when people just don't care about Pokemon anymore and they have to reprioritize their other goals and other things in life. We get older, our priorities shift, things change, and that's just life. That's just how it goes. I think that it's hard for most people to prioritize a TCG for their entire lives. And so it is astounding the amount of demand and the amount of support in this hobby and the amount of just content and new collectors coming into the space. I mean, it's an amazing thing. And that's what's great about Pokemon is it's the franchise that just keeps on giving. It continues to be extremely popular and pretty much the most popular franchise ever. What else? Let's see. Yeah, him talking about, you know, hopefully, this, a subscriber and a fan of mine that came into the bar, you know, talking about stuff maybe going back to MSRP. At the very least, we both agreed on this, that it's going to be when buying Pokemon is a painful thing to be doing. When no one is doing it. And, you know, another one of my friends was talking about, and maybe this was the fan too that came into the bar, but I think it was another one of my friends who was talking about the German currency that lost so much value that people were shoveling it into the fireplace for heat to feed the fire, and because it was so worthless. And, you know, at the end of the day, what exactly are we dealing with here? We're dealing with the TCG. We're dealing with cardboard. I think there's a very real risk. That we're in a super speculative bubble right now. And the people that will continue buying know that the best time to be buying is probably when no one is buying and it's very painful to buy, right? When people are most fearful. This kind of goes back to, you know, all the great Warren Buffett quotes, you know, talking about the stock market, times to buy. And for the most part, your money is losing value every day to inflation. So Pokemon is a great place, you know, while things are appreciating to park your money. But there are going to be times, just like in equities, I would think, where there's kind of a slow time in Pokemon. And I think a lot of us can agree that that slow time is right now. These next couple of months, we could see the hobby really slow down in growth. And this could be an opportunistic time to be buying. Additionally, it's gonna, you know, he really said it so well, the guy that came in, that, you know, it's gonna feel terrible. It's gonna suck buying Pokemon product when you're buying it at the absolute best time, when no one is talking about buying those products. That's when it's gonna be the best time to buy those products, right? When everyone is talking about doing something, when everybody is saying the same thing, right, and bouncing off of each other, and it's you know, buy this set, the set's going to do well. When everybody is jumping on that bandwagon, it really becomes bandwagon investing, and that's the one thing that has continuously been a worry to me. Additionally, I have always had a harder time selling sealed product, and I'm not talking about selling it just for market, right? Selling it slightly above market, really making a decent chunk of money on this stuff. I have really never seen it. You know, I know that we all talk about, oh, my stuff has gone up, you know, 100% in value. But it's another thing actually liquidating this stuff and selling all of it. And it can be a real pain in the butt. So I think there's a lot of sides to this. One last thing. A buddy of mine, Derek, shout out to you for pointing this out. I thought it was kind of interesting. And he never says this. This is a very rare thing. He's never pointed out that Pokemon Center's made a mistake, but he recently ordered some products from Pokemon Center, some ETBs and a booster box. I think it was like 2 ETBs and 1 booster box. And Pokemon Center doubled his order with 2 more ETBs and another booster box, or another ETB and another booster box. Either way, they threw in extra stuff. They messed up on the order. And I don't know if that's happening to anybody else, but that is like a money glitch right there. That almost never happens. So if, maybe it's the Thanksgiving spirit. I don't know. But you guys should definitely let me know if you've ordered from Pokemon Center and you've seen this happen. You've gotten extra product in your order. That would be a really interesting thing to happen. Anyways, I know there's a lot of hype for the Mega Gengar right now and the newer Gengar. But I wanted to talk about this Sabrina's Gengar because I do think this is a very special card. And I love my copy, but I would like to get a PSA 10 at some point. So I am watching the market, and it is very, very exciting to see the price come down a little bit, in my opinion. But I'm going to have to go looking through the auctions again and see where some of the past auctions have gone. Because maybe this was one of the higher auctions overall. It was just much lower than the buy it now listings. So correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I think that this card was undervalued right now, or valued properly, and the market has spoken. It's worth $14,000. Again, I do want to point out those lower feedback bidders that bid this up back and forth up to 14K from like 11, 12K. So I'm definitely curious where the past auctions are. Right now, I'm going to go ahead and check where those past auctions ended up. When I saw what it ended at, I wanted to make a video. I wanted to go ahead and talk about it compared to the other listings that are out there, and also looking at the bidders and talking about, these lower feedback bidders that were bidding on this. Could this also represent people that didn't really know what they were doing, that were pumping up the card's value, just getting competitive in auctions? Because that's what happens in auctions. They're super competitive. You want to one-up the other guy. But yeah, I think there were some risky decisions made here, and I'm very curious if the price trends down over the next couple months. And what that says about the vintage market as a whole. Anyways, peace out, guys. Have a fantastic day. I'll catch you on the next one. I'll see you on the live stream Wednesday if I don't make a video tomorrow.